So today is day 2 of school resuming. And it's always a little bittersweet because each time there's a break, there's always an adjustment in my schedule, an adjustment in my son's schedule, of course. And I mean, just there's always, even mentally, there's always having to readjust it and prepare for how the days are going to look. Um, I miss my kiddo already because during the breaks is when I really get a chance to, of course, spend more time with him and see the growth. Just because he's not with someone else all day. I look a little raggedy. I just throw anything on in the mornings. And you know what? Getting to that, it has taken a lot for me to just show up no matter what I look like, no matter I because I used to feel like everything had to be perfect. I used to feel like my hair had to be right, my clothes had to be right. Um whether I put on a little bit of foundation, I don't like my skin to look really shiny on camera. Um Blemishes, if I had a pimple or a scar from a pimple, I break out. This is my area. My whole life, this has just been my area. Um, and so I've always felt like all of that just had to be perfect before I could get on camera and present myself to the world, even in business. Just one thing I've always battled with is rejection, and that comes from some childhood trauma, of course. But rejection, judgment, um, just overall feeling like I had to be perfect. But back to my son, what I wanted to talk about today is the day he became disabled. I touched on it a little bit and it made me a little emotional the last video. So hopefully I can get through it without crying. But the day my son became disabled, or the day that changed everything. November 2021, a couple days before um, you all's this Thanksgiving holiday, um, I got a call. Now, I had just left my son. He had just started middle school, so I was giving him the responsibility. I felt like he could handle walking to the bus stop, staying at home alone and walking to the bus stop. He would only be at home alone for maybe an hour, hour and a half, I think it was. And I could see him on camera, and I didn't work too far. So, if something were to happen, I could easily just get up and go home. Well, I get a call. He's like I said, I could see him on camera. He's looking fine. He's dressed, he's ready to go. I mean, he was just becoming a little man, like he was being so responsible. Um, I was just super proud just looking at him, watching him get ready. Everything just seemed to be fine that morning. I'm at work and my phone rings. My desk phone rings actually, and it's the school. And the nurse is like, "Miss Baskin, Jayden just had a seizure." And I'm like, "A seizure?" She's like, "Yes, which the medics are here. Which hospital would you like them to take him to?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, what? Is he conscious?" "No, he's not conscious." And oh my goodness, I couldn't pack up my stuff fast enough. So I instruct them to take him to the children's hospital. He I beat them there actually. I beat them to the children's hospital. I'm out in the waiting room waiting on them to pull up with him. I go in and he's out of it. I didn't know what to expect. So, doctors are coming in. Um, Honestly, let me tell you, one physician kind of ticked me off because I'm his mom. I'm crying. I'm wondering what's going on with my son. And he's asking me, is there something that I need to tell them? And I'm like, huh? And he was like, well, you seem to be pretty upset. It took everything in me to hold it together and just focus on my baby because why wouldn't I be upset? Like, what is going on? Like, I'm crying. It wasn't like I was just hysterical and going off on people or anything like that. Like, I am emotional, wondering what is going on with my child. And after some imaging, after he was in the hospital for a couple of days, and after several tests and imaging, well, actually just imaging at that point, and they did run, I think, some blood tests. Of course, they were making sure my 12-year-old isn't taking drugs. Of course, all of that was negative, but they were asking questions about that also, and I'm like, well, I noticed some candy was in his pockets because I'm like checking everything, and so my baby is like out of it. I'm not really understanding what's going on at this point. Like, I am just thinking he's going to end up going home and everything will be okay. Well, they almost sent him home and till I demanded some imaging. So they went ahead and they gave him a CT scan. The CT scan revealed some thickness in his skull. And so after that, it was like, yeah, we're a little concerned about that. We would like to get some more imaging done. So they do an MRI. The MRI dang near lit up like a bulb because I mean his skin was just glowing. He has lots of, excuse me for not like knowing the medical terms. That's just too much. And I'm not here to pretend like I just know everything. But lots of damage to the left side of his brain, a small cyst in the mid at the top of his brain, and then a little bit of damage in the back. And they were like, it appears to be old, and tried to tell me that my son was possibly born that way. And I'm like, no, no, he was not born that way. He's met all of his milestones, no problem. He walked, he talked, he did well academically, he could play sports, he was just fine. There was no alert to anything being wrong with him, and me being that mother that always made sure that my kids went to their routine appointments, whether that was dental, optical, the routine pediatrician visits. And at the time, I was allowing my children to get vaccines. I stopped that definitely after everything happened with Jayden. So they told me also not to comb through history. When you know your child has been functioning with no limitations, you're going to comb through history. And again, I was that parent that I had pictures, I had videos, and I'm going back and I'm looking, trying to see if I could get some clue, if I could see where there was possibly some indication that something was wrong. I didn't see anything. So they sent us home with seizure medication. No plan whatsoever on next steps of what to do. And after a couple of months, because I mean, I'm still in shock. And he, I learned that his vision had deteriorated in December. We had to go back because they couldn't, I mean, in hindsight, it was as if he had a stroke. And he couldn't walk. He's partially blind. He lost his vision in the right peripheral field in both eyes, and so he kind of like sees everything off to the left. And he also has he to describe how he walked at that time. He needed me. He held on to me for everything, and to describe how he walked at that time, it was almost like a baby calf after they're born trying to get their footing, or somebody heavily intoxicated. So, a couple months go by of us just sort of dealing with it. Um, like when I tell you they left us just high and dry to figure it out. Of course, I ended up switching his neurologist because it was like it was really like she just really didn't care. And to this day, that woman will not, if she's on call and he's in the hospital, she will not come into his room. I've never had any words with her. She just knew I wasn't happy with her. She knew she dropped the ball, and I switched positions. um, I got him back into his original pediatrician because at the time we had just moved and I was trying to get us closer, find medical care closer to where we were versus having to drive a half an hour to an hour sometimes, depending on traffic, across town to take him to an appointment, a routine appointment at that. So myself at that time, my oldest had already gone off to college, so it was just my middle child and my son when we first moved, when I first started to get everything transferred over. So he was seeing a new pediatrician that really didn't know him, that began to just chase problems. Jaden's he before the major decline, he was having issues with his he was always nauseous, and that was the biggest thing. He was just always nauseous. And then there was some bedwetting at one point. And so we're checking to make sure he's not diabetic. He's seeing a gastrologist. He went to an ophthalmologist, and coming to find out later on, he didn't need to see an ophthalmologist. He needed to see not an ophthalmologist, an optometrist. He was seeing an optometrist. Come to find out, he needed to see an ophthalmologist. Um, he didn't see an ophthalmologist, of course, until after that seizure. But fast forwarding a little bit, I'm sorry if I'm all over the place, because things are just kind of coming to me, and I haven't really had to tell this story in a while. But he ended up going back to his previous pediatrician, who ended up in tears because that was not the same child that they remember seeing last. And they'd been seeing him ever since he was like 4 years old. Um, it took them to get on board and reach out to the neurologist and was like, this is not, this didn't happen in the womb. We've been seeing him. And that could have also, made that neurologist feel a little, indifferent too, because now she wasn't just hearing from me that she got it wrong. She was hearing from his pediatrician that she got it wrong. And after that, they called and, well, his pediatrician called and said, take him over to the hospital. He's been admitted. I This was in May. February, he had a breakthrough seizure while being on meds. Again, this was still very new to us, and I every time he had a seizure, we were at the hospital. I didn't know what to do. Now I feel like I'm a not it's hard every time, but I feel like I'm a pro at it. I don't need to send him to the hospital every time. But he ended up in the hospital for a month. He got out just before his 13th birthday. Half of the stay was testing. I feel like half of the stay was torture because he had a lumbar puncture that he wasn't heavily sedated for. So he woke up during the procedure and I could hear him screaming. And I couldn't get into the room, and trust me, I tried. That thought right there is gonna make me emotional, but I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna get through this. The other half of the stay was rehab, and there was lots of progress made. He was able to walk on his own without holding on to anyone. Um, I'm okay. Yeah. He was able to walk without holding on to anyone. We came home. At that point, his pediatrician was like, let's start getting second opinions. They were like, there's a reason. She said, there's a reason why um, IU doctors don't send their children to IU neurologists. So she said, I either want you, if you can, let's try to get to Philadelphia, or which was number one at the time when it came down to pediatric neurology, or Texas. Um, I chose Texas. I think it may have been the flights were maybe a little afford. I mean, I had to consider everything. I had to consider transportation. I had to, while we were there, flights and hotel. So Texas just kind of worked out for us. Um, and I didn't want to have to ask people for too much help. So I did end up putting together a GoFundMe, and people immediately started to help get him to um, get the funds together to get him to Texas. We ended up going to Texas twice. I'd have to say they gave me more insight than what IU did. Once IU started realizing what Texas was saying, then it was like the story was changing a little bit. That, that's yeah. But it made me realize that I had to become well informed and really advocate for my son. I really couldn't take a doctor's word for it. And if I could have, I would have relocated to Texas at that time. Um, mm, I'm sorry. I, mm. But s- today, today he's stable. Um, so that's a good thing. He's had genetic testing done both here in Indiana and in Texas. And the genetics testing all showed pretty much the same thing. No definitive answer. There's really nothing. A little bit of misspellings in his mitochondrial DNA, but not enough after testing myself and his siblings to say that he has any type of genetic disorder. And sometimes you're hoping that some tests come back and say something, and you're happy that they come back and say nothing. Because there were some things that they threw at us that he could have just went through, maybe like some gene therapy, and probably bounced back from. But there's been nothing really to say this is definitely what it is. Both on all sides of, like, when it comes to imaging and when it comes to genetics. So all we can do is treat symptoms. And of course, as you know, without a prognosis, there's really no without a diagnosis, there's really no prognosis. So all I can do is be thankful that he's been stable. He's had multiple MRIs since, both with contrast and without. He's had additional CT scans, um, and there's been no changes. So I guess what more can you ask for? I, I feel like that right there is answered prayer. We haven't He hasn't bounced back much. If I'm saying it right, neuroplasticity um is an amazing thing. The brain can rewire itself. Of course, it cannot restore his vision. But one thing we found out that was encouraging was at first they were telling me that his optic nerve was severed, and they apologized. IU apologized for that because Texas was like, Texas is like number two when in the nation when it comes down to at that time. I haven't checked since, but at that time in 2022, they were number two when it came down to pediatric neurology. So they were like, it's not severed, but it's narrow, so it's still, and they say so far everything still looks healthy. It's just that the optic nerve is has narrowed. Um, to me, that gives me hope because I'm not too educated on the optics and how the optic nerve and how all of that stuff works, but I am a if Yah can raise, because all things work through Yah. But if the Messiah can raise Lazarus from the dead, restore sight. I mean, all through the Bible, you read about miraculous things happening. And so that gives me hope when it comes down to my baby that eventually he's going to experience healing. But one thing I don't do is at the same time, I'm a realist. So it's like, whether it happens on this side or of eternity or on the other, he's going to receive healing. And I always make sure that my son knows that these bodies are temporary. All these aches and pains and things that we feel now, it's temporary. We will be restored later. So whether it happens now or later, my son still holds on to his faith and he knows that, oh, this wrinkled shirt is really getting to me. But like I said, in the mornings, I come out here. Well, now since school has started, I'm throwing on my workout gear and getting my son off to school, and then I typically work out, but now schedules changed a little bit, so I come out, I get my studies in, my Bible studies in, and I've been hopping on camera, and I check my garden, of course. Um, but yeah, this is bothering me. But again, I'm gonna try not to let it bother me too much because, like I said, I'm going to show up regardless. I am dedicated to showing up regardless. And I feel like my story needs to get out there because, again, I want other people to know that they are not alone and it does get easier. It not dramatically easier, but you begin to adjust and you begin to find yourself thankful for the things that you still have. You begin to see the beauty in the small things, that being able to stand up on your own, being able to scan the room, because I'm gonna tell you, if you didn't know my son was partially blind, you wouldn't know because he has begun to scan so well. I have even had to ask him, like, are you sure you've been able to see okay this whole entire time? Because right now you're scanning as if your sight is still okay. Um, just hold on to the little things, appreciate the little things. Um, it's hard in the beginning. It's so hard. You will be an emotional wreck. And I'm going to tell you, I cried. I would go into my prayer closet and scream to the top of my lungs, Abba, why? Why? Where are you? I need you. Where are you? Show me who you are. Here I go. Here I go. Oh my goodness. I would scream to the top of my lungs all the time. All the time. I remember one time coming home from the hospital to refresh our bags, And when he was in the hospital for a month, and I for so long I was just kind of back and forth with just struggling, because you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle mentally. You're going to struggle emotionally because you're trying to figure out how, why, when, what do I do now? Is life over? Um, but it gets better. It gets better. You adjust. You adjust. And once you begin to establish your routine and just hold on to your faith, because he will strengthen you. Once you begin to just come to grips with everything, your brain starts to allow you to figure the rest out. And I'm not, here it is, it's 2026. I'm not done figuring it out. I don't think I'll ever be done figuring it out. But I look at it like now, with everything that I had planned, I wonder what I was being saved from, why I was set down the way that I was set down. I was being saved from something, whether it was something that was going to happen in this life or the afterlife. I was being saved from something. I truly believe now that he was calling me out. He, he was calling me to grow, to develop a deeper relationship with him, to know who he actually is. Um, because I demanded. Imagine that, like I demanded the Most High to show me who he was. And it was like, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm just not going to show you the way you think I'm going to show you, but I'm going to show you. And he did. And through him showing me, it strengthened me. And people would say, don't ask for strength because he'll give you'll go through trials. And I used to always ask for strength, and I would get signs. I knew something was coming before it came. I'm just gonna be flat out honest. I knew something was coming before it came. I just didn't know what. I was seeing signs, not in my son, but there was just things. There was just something in my spirit. I just didn't know what. I didn't know it was coming for one of my children. Came for the strongest one, I tell you that. Um, but we're getting through it. And when I tell you he's happy and we're figuring it out, he's happy and we're figuring it out. Um, right now we're working on getting him in Special Olympics. You saw, if you go back onto my page, you saw a little short video of him. This is his senior year. Sometimes he's in a wheelchair, sometimes he's not. It just depends. He needs a wheelchair for distances. And but he hasn't always needed the wheelchair. He got the wheelchair like 2000, sometime in maybe 2003, 2004 is when he got the wheelchair. 2004 actually is when he got the wheelchair. So he went a couple years without needing anything. He got a walker. He got a walker in 2023, and then he got a wheelchair in 2024. So he hasn't always needed these things, but it is with in situations like this, it is like if you don't use it, you will lose it. So he has these peaks, and he kind of it kind of ebbs and flows with him, especially after a seizure. It's almost like he kind of regresses just for a short period of time. So he could be doing good, and then if he has a seizure, then he kind of has a little bit of a setback, and then it feels like we don't start all over again, but we do have to take some steps back to bring him back to baseline, to his previous baseline. But he's doing good. I'm doing good. Um Now I'm just trying to figure out what life is going to look like for him after high school. He wants to be a water boy. He's ready to work. So I have to see what's available for that. And I plan on reaching out to the Make-A-Wish Foundation and his pediatrician to see what we can do about making that happen, because they did already submit some paperwork. It was just at the time he didn't know what he wanted, but now he knows what he wants, and he would really like to, even though we're in Indiana, he doesn't want to do anything with the pro teams here. He really wants to do something, hoping that he can maybe help out at a game with the Carolina Panthers. So if anybody sees this that has a connect, hook us up, get us connected. Um, I'll make sure that my contact information is in my description on my page, or maybe in this video. But yeah, if anybody has any leads on that, we'd appreciate it. Um, and again, I'm going to reach out to Special Olympics because he still enjoys football. Um, he still enjoys sports, period. He would love to be able to drive. So my hope and dream is to one day own some land and homestead and get him an ATV and let him just do his thing, because he more than likely will, unless Yah says different, he more than likely will not be able to drive. Um, but if I have land and nothing but space and opportunity, he can do that until his little is content. Because he's always going to be with me. He wants to be with me, and I want him to be with me. And, I always pray that, whenever it's time for one of us to leave this earth, my daughters would be hurt. And I pray that, it happens no time soon. But I pray that me and that one go together. I do. Because I need him and he needs me. Uh, that's about all that I have for you today. But before you go, I'd like to say this. The hardest day of your life doesn't have to be the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of a chapter you never wanted, but one that reveals just how strong you really are. So keep going, and I'll see you in the next one.